Now, when it comes to shifting responsibility for failure, however, no one's been a more frequent object of President Obama's reproach than President Bush. It's wearing so thin that it's a regular joke on late-night TV. I'm convinced that history will judge President Bush far more kindly. You'll recall he pulled us from a very severe and deepening recession after 9/11. He overcame the teachers' unions to make sure that we could test our kids, see how well they're doing, and evaluate schools that were underperforming. He took down the Taliban in Afghanistan, and he waged a war against the jihadists and was not afraid, by the way, to call it what it was, a war. And he kept us safe. And I respect his silence, even in the face of the assaults on his record that come from this administration. But at the same time, I also respect the loyalty and indefatigable defense of truth that comes from our I don't give a damn Vice President Dick Cheney. I'm afraid that after all the finger pointing is finished, it's become clear who's responsible for President Obama's lost year, the 10% unemployment year: President Obama and his fellow Democrats. So when it comes to pinning blame, pin the tail on the donkeys. Now, there's been a good deal of conjecture about the cause of President Obama's failures. As he frequently reminds us, he assumed the presidency at a difficult time. That's the reason, by the way, that we argued during the campaign that these were not times for on-the-job training. Had he or his advisors even spent a few years in the real economy, they would have learned that the number one cause of failure of small and large businesses in the private sector is lack of focus. And that the first rule of turning around any troubled enterprise is focus, focus, focus. And so when he assumed the presidency, his energy should have been focused on fixing the economy, creating jobs, succeeding in our fight against radical violent jihad in Afghanistan and Iraq, and keeping us safe. Instead, he applied his time and his political capital to his ill-conceived takeover of health care and to building his personal popularity in foreign countries. He failed to focus, and so he failed. But there was an even bigger problem than just his lack of focus. Ronald Reagan used to say something like this about liberals: it's not that they're ignorant, it's just that what they know is wrong. And too often, when it came to President Obama's agenda, what he knew was wrong. Now, he did correctly the other day say something that rung true. He acknowledged that government doesn't create jobs, that only the private sector can do that in a lasting way. He said, however, that government can create the conditions, the environment, which leads the private sector to add employment. But then consider not just what he said, but what he did in the last year. And ask yourself, did it help or hurt the environment for investment and growth and job creation? Announcing a 2011 tax increase for individuals and businesses and capital gains, hurt. Passing cap and trade, hurt. Giving trial lawyers a free pass, hurt. Proposing card check to eliminate secret ballots in union elections, hurt. Holding on to GM stock and insisting on calling the shots there, hurt. Making a grab for health care, almost 1/5 of our economy, hurt. Budgeting government deficits in the trillions, hurt. And scapegoating and demonizing business people, hurt. President Obama instituted the most anti-growth, anti-investment, anti-jobs measures we've seen in our lifetimes. Now, he called his agenda ambitious. I call it reckless. He scared employers, so jobs were scarce. His nearly $1 trillion stimulus created not one net new job in the private sector, but it saved and grew jobs in the government sector, the one place where he should have shed jobs. And even today, because he's been unwilling or unable to define the road ahead, uncertainty and lack of predictability permeate the private economy and prolongs its stall. America is not better off than it was $1.8 trillion ago. Now, will the economy and unemployment recover? Of course. Thanks to the vibrant and innovative citizenry of America, they always do. But this president will not deserve credit that he will undoubtedly claim. He has prolonged the recession, expanded the pain of unemployment, and added to the burden of debt we're going to be leaving our future generations because of it. President Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and their team have failed the American people, and that's why their majority will soon be out the door. Isn't it fitting? Isn't it fitting that so many of those who have contempt for the private sector will soon find themselves back in it? The people of America are looking to conservatives for leadership, and we can't fail them. Conservatism has had from its inception vigorously positive, intellectually rigorous agenda and thinking. That agenda should have, in my view, 3 pillars: strengthen the economy, strengthen our security, strengthen our families. We will strengthen our economy by simplifying and lowering taxes, by replacing outmoded regulation with modern, up-to-date, dynamic regulation, by opening markets to American goods, by strengthening our currency and our capital markets, and by investing in basic science and research. Instead of leading the world in how much we borrow, it's time that we make sure we lead the world in how much we build and create and invest. We will strengthen our security by building missile defense, restoring our military might, and standing by and strengthening our intelligence officers. Conservatives believe in providing constitutional rights to our citizens, not to enemy combatants like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Yeah, on our watch, the conversation with a would-be suicide bomber will not begin with the words, "You have the right to remain silent." Our conservative agenda strengthens our family in part by putting our schools on track to be the best in the world again. Because great schools start with great teachers, we'll insist on hiring teachers from the top third of college graduates, and we'll give better teachers better pay. School accountability, school choice, cyber schools will be priorities. And we'll put parents and teachers back in charge of education, not the fat cat CEOs of the teachers' unions.